And we are recording. All right. So today's topic is aimed for non technical co founders of tech startups. Our guest is a software consultant that partners with non technical individuals to help them bring their ideas to marketplace and widen their knowledge about web development. Um, there's a lot of people that have good ideas and good work ethic, good entrepreneurship skill, good business attitude, but they just don't have the development or web development or the coding skills needed to execute their plan, right? Or they might have some. They might have some HTML, some CSS, some JavaScript, but their idea or their project in mind is a little bit too ambitious for them to start coding it themselves. Like, for example, if you just know a little bit of JavaScript, a little bit of HTML, a little bit of the basic stuff, you cannot go and develop Twitch. You cannot go and develop Instagram. You cannot go and develop all of that stuff. So you probably need a lot of expertise with you to execute that. And this is where our guest comes, André Barnes. How's it going, man? Everything's good?
Yeah. Doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. Pleasure. So we've got very interesting topics here. So first, we would like to learn more about you. How did you end up doing what you're doing? We're going to talk about your consultations plan. You have a very a decent definition of what a startup is, the types of developers, the types of softwares companies end up doing, uh, tips for non-technical co-founders, no-code movement, database projects, and failure in startups. So we've got a lot of topics to go through, and hopefully we'll get to all of them in time. So just to
Yeah, let's
start
get
with,
to it for sure.
first things first, is how did you end up doing this? What triggered you to be like, okay, I need to help these type of people because it seems like they need help. What happened?
Yeah, so interesting. So I've been in software development for over 20 years. And first, I started off in the corporate world developing, on dev teams. Then I decided to go off consulting or freelancing, really, because that's just what I want to do. And I started working with different agencies, and, it's usually an hourly billing model. And I found that I was most successful working with people that were non-technical.
This
And the
agency is for is a development agency to consult for this type of stuff.
Yes, I went off to work with development agencies that had clients, right? So
Mm,
essentially, the development agency has a roster of engineers, developers, and they do all the marketing and sales work to get clients, and they
mm,
kind of match you up, right?
mm.
So I went off to start to do that type of work.
Were they mainly U.S.
Um,
clients or local clients, or you worked with international demographics?
I worked with clients from everywhere.
Fantastic.
I mean, largely US,
Mm,
but they these agencies that I worked with would work with people anywhere around the globe.
okay.
Yeah. So I just found that one, I was more interested in people with sort of more of a business background.
Mm,
And I found that I could help out a lot of people that were non-technical because I was able to communicate the technical world over to the business world. And a lot of times it's really hard for non-technical people to talk with technical people. And so I enjoyed it actually, and that's kind of how I walked into this sort of thing. And those were the projects. Those projects were the ones that I was most successful on, the ones that I enjoyed the most. So that's kind of why I went this route. And I just saw that there was just a need because what ends up happening with a lot of people is they have this idea, a ton of features they want to build, right? And when you go to an agency, to a development agency, they're just going to build it for you because that's what you asked for. Their business model is based on billable hours, right?
mm.
It's not based on your business outcome. Hey,
This is
I've
what we
I've
call
built so many
bespoke in
features.
the industry, right?
What do you mean? as far
Uh,
as
like bespoke, like isn't this what you call like bespoke services? As if you go there, you tell them your requirements. This is how much it's going to cost you. They do it. No iterations, no nothing. Just kind of like a delivery and pricing matching. That's it. They build what you said, and that's it. And then if you need any
right,
single
it's
line of code more, boom, you need to pay more.
change request, whatever. Yes, absolutely. So kind of like an hourly billing thing. But the problem is like a lot of those agencies, they execute really well, have some really great developers that can get the job done. A lot of times founders are asking for too much. You only need a minimum of features to get built right away, to go put it out, get some feedback, and then iterate on that. Right. But you go with this long list of features to build, and they're not even proven. So you end up spending all of this money on something that you should have probably spent 10% of. But the problem is two-sided because the development agency, their incentive is billable hours. That's their
Mm,
incentive. They're incentivized to bill hours. And
mhm,
so they're not going to say, hey, this doesn't make any sense. You shouldn't do this now. You should just do something else first, go get some feedback, and then we'll figure out what we should do. Iterate, right? But
mm.
it's not in their interest to do that. So like as a founder, you come with everything, you kind of do this brain dump, and they say, all right, yeah, we can build it for you. And they kind of go and execute on that thing. So
I see.
so yeah,
And
so
from that,
that's kind of the way I got into that. Mhm.
you started your own consult. Like, is it freelance consultancy that what you do?
So I do, I mean, yeah, I do a few different things. I
Hmm.
do freelance work where I just actually get do practitioner type of stuff, and
Hmm.
then I do consulting, which is kind of retainer advisory kind of work with startup people, with startup entrepreneurs, or non-technical. I'm sorry, entrepreneurs. And I have a few different productized services as well, but they're more like advisory kind of work.
Got you. I mean, you've got
Mhm.
some consultation plans. You've got the advisory retainer, the quick start launch, the quick start blueprint, quick start feasibility, right?
Yes.
And these are all um, consultation plans that people can contact you to obviously learn more about, right? And
Right.
obviously get
So,
your advice on.
good. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Sure. Yeah. So the launch is kind of that practitioner kind of work. So that's actually, let's build your MVP, and I'll actually do the building work as well as, advising and helping you to kind of whittle down the features that you need to put into your application, helping you come up with an idea of how to market it or how to sell it. I mean, I'm not a marketer or a seller, but
Hmm.
I have a little bit of experience. At least I can give a little bit of guidance in that respect, and just kind of marrying the technical plan with the business plan, because that's the most important thing. I don't want to just sit there and build everything for you when it won't be used in 2 years, kind of thing. So, yeah.
You know these kind of like hidden rules in the in the tech startup scene, where, for example, if you're a non-technical co-founder and you go to raise money, right, and you don't have a CTO, that's a very major red flag, right? Like these are like the hidden one of these hidden rules in the tech startup scene. Like, or if you go to raise money and you never heard of Y Combinator, like you don't know what you're doing. You know what I mean? You're not in the scene. You're not integrated well. If you go to raise money and you don't know what product market fit, you don't know what you do, and all of that stuff. So, would you agree that if you're a non-technical co-founder, do not pay any single penny out of your pocket to develop the app? Go spend time to find a qualified developer and partner up with as your CTO, and then start to build it based on equity. Because maybe number one, you've sold someone about your plan and they actually accepted to put their time without money, which means that there's some, that by itself give you a little bit of validation, a little bit. And second is you can iterate as much as you want. What do you think about that?
Okay. So I say you said a whole lot. So the first thing I would say is this: the best way is to partner with someone that's technical. Absolutely. The absolutely best way to get your startup built or get your idea is to partner with someone technical, without a doubt. Saying that, it's not easy to do, right? So the one thing you said about equity, equity is really, really difficult when you're talking about equity for nothing, right?
Mm,
So for someone on the technical side, it's a huge opportunity cost. So they're going to dedicate some time to working on this business idea
mhm,
with no guarantees of a result, right? So equity is just a piece of paper. It doesn't matter until there's some sort of financial transaction, right?
mhm,
You get sold, you get funded, and then they can get paid for the services. Developers can go get $200,000 a year with 5-10 years experience. It's not a problem. So asking them to kind of work just based on sweat equity, that was like a big term a while ago, is
mm,
really difficult to do. Um, so I think it is the best way, without a doubt.
mm,
And
mm,
I think with the founder, it's all about a relationship, right? It takes time. You don't want to do it in a very transactional way. It takes time to kind of nurture a relationship, to understand what motivates them, that'll keep them in the game. And but yes, if they buy in and they want to help you and build, sure. I think my advice too would be, you would want to build something shorter, something that can be done in a month or two,
mm.
quickly, right? To keep that motivation. And it's all about momentum early on going. So, and as far as funding goes, I understand that game. I'm not a huge person on funding. I really like bootstrapping ideas. I know
Makes
it's a
sense.
little bit more it's a little bit more difficult, but you're a lot more deliberate too on what you're doing. Um, so
Mailchimp is a
I
big example, isn't it?
Yes. So Mailchimp, what happened with them? So they worked together, I believe. The founder, the two or three founders, I believe it was,
And
they
never
worked
raised a
together
single
and
round, I think.
never raised around, right? And they just kind of built little pieces here and there. I think what they did was, which is what I suggest to most people, is start a service business. And it's not scalable. Like, it'll be you doing the work, doing the execution. But what happens is you get to start learning from customers, right? You get to start getting customers and doing the work and learning what's important to them. And you can learn what to build from there, and you can get paid at the same time. So, and then you can take that money and invest it into your business. And that's kind of what Mailchimp did. I mean, would they exit for like $12 billion
Mhm.
last year, I believe?
Yeah,
I
a
mean,
couple, yeah.
it was a 20-year process, right? So it's not like it happened overnight, but they've been successful from almost day one. They
Mm,
were making money, right? So the idea of building a startup is about building something that's scalable, right? Building something that people can come. It's self-serve, especially like SaaS. It's just self-serve, and people can just use it, and you can just kind of collect your money, and you can scale it to millions of users, right? So,
mm.
but that's a real hard thing to do when you're starting at zero. It's like, first get to one, then get to 10, then get to
Exactly,
100.
because when you look at most stories happen this way. You know, you're in your 20s, you're doing something that barely pays you, or doing nothing that's paying you, meaning you're in uni or whatever. And uni is what we call university in the UK. I'm not sure in the US if it's the same thing, but we just call it uni. And you don't have money to pay agency, you don't have money to pay, someone who is already earning six figures. You don't have. So that would be the path that you would take. You would go to someone you either know, or a referral, or somebody that you search online, or whatever it is, and you'll try to hustle your way to partner up with them. Be like, listen, this is what I've got. What I want from you is this. What you're gonna expect from me is one, two, three. And if we do this, we have, as they say, 50% chance or whatever. Everybody has a different percentage. 50% of startup failed, 90% of startup, I don't know what it is, but we have a chance to make this happen. And um, and then, if they got convinced, then you go for it, because obviously you don't have money to pay them and all of that. So I think this is what mainly happens. We found this in Airbnb. I think Patreon did this, and I think as well in Twitch. One of the four co-founders, Michael Seibel, I think his last name, which is the who is now the CEO of Y Combinator. He's not a developer. Um, so I think you find these kind of stories all the time, where the non-technical co-founder is in need, so they would have to go and pitch and try to convince someone to work not for free but for a future. It's kind of like a pre-investment thing. It's kind of, when the investors like kind of like they're giving you actual money so they can expect return in the future. Same thing. This guy is not giving money; he's giving you time, which is also very very valuable to expect something in return in the future. Um, yeah. Do you see any other stories other than this that can work for the same type of scenario where a guy doesn't have money, doesn't have what would they do if they can't convince someone to join them? What are the options here? Learn how to code, or what are the options?
Yeah. So let me just bring up one point. So I think that one of the biggest things that you can do is prove it. It's not about pitching, right? It's
Mm,
about going and saying, "Hey, listen, I've been talking to customers. I have
mm-hmm,
about 10 people that are interested in this idea, and this is why
mm-hmm,
they're interested in it." So starting to do that business development, that
mm-hmm.
customer interviewing before you even build anything, and you're able to take that and bring it to someone that's technical that says, okay, all we need to do is build this thing, and then we have these people to start iterating with. I think that's the best way to do it if you're non-technical. I think it's the best way to do it even if you're technical, to be honest with you.
That's
Because it
fantastic.
all
So
starts with customers. You have no business if you have no customers.
exactly. That's actually fantastic. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this. So how do you do this? Do you go to Reddit? Do you go to Instagram? Do you go to people on the street? How do you get these surveys? What do you do? I mean, you as a technical
Okay,
co-founder,
so
what do you want? What would
depending
you
on
like
your
to
business.
see?
So you have some business idea and you have an ideal customer in mind. Say you're building something for maybe the transportation industry, and maybe it's some niche part of the transportation industry. Well, you want to go to where those people are to start talking to them, right? So it's all about finding your ideal market and your ideal customer. You want to go where they hang out, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's at a conference, wherever it happens to be. You want to show up where your ideal customer is, because that's the feedback you want. So getting feedback from, a random person in a coffee shop or whatever, it probably won't be good feedback that you can use, because they're not going to buy your product, right? You want to go talk to the people that you are solving a pain for, you are solving a problem for. And so once you're able to build that up first, I think that's a lot better than just kind of pitching, investors or marketing people, salespeople, technical people to help you. It's go do the research first and go show up where your customers are and talk about their problems, not your solution, but talk about their problems.
Hmm.
And once you start to understand what their problems are, you can start to understand how you can solve them.
What do you think? What do you think of also using sketches and type of design to convey this message to both the CTOs that you're pitching and to the customers that you're surveying. So when I started Noise Sharks, I don't know how to code, I don't know how to design, never design anything. So I just wanted to put what I have in mind just for myself before I pitch anybody, just so I can have my thoughts organized. I didn't know what designer use or nothing. This is talking from a guy that didn't know nothing about. So I literally opened PowerPoint at the beginning, right, and just started like what I have in my mind. Okay, I want this button here. I want this one. I want this. You know what I mean? And slowly, slowly, I started, to learn how to design. How to design. I've learned the do's and don'ts, and I got into that. And now I actually do the designs, send them to my development team, CTO, explain it to the development, and all of that stuff. Now, what I learned from this process is that if, and this is my opinion, I wanna see what your opinion about this. But what I've seen is the moment you actually put what you've got in mind and the branding you've got and all of that stuff on something that's feasible that you can see, it's way easy to sell, and it's way easy to connect to, and somehow you can start seeing a lot of modification errors. Like a lot of the times while I'm doing the design, while I'm doing this, I'm like, hold on a second, this doesn't work. How is this a good business one? It doesn't work, delete this, you know what I mean? Do it. So what do you think about this process and being resourceful as a non-technical co-founder, learning these type of things?
I like that word you for sure. So listen, if you can bring, I call it tangible evidence. If you could bring evidence, drawings that you've had, if you can use Figma or some a little bit more advanced tool to do something more high fidelity, it's excellent because it's better than just pitching, right? It's, oh yeah, this is what I'm thinking. Here is my idea. And you can kind of work with it through with your founder or co-founder or whoever you're talking to. I think it's a great idea. Presentation, PowerPoint, whatever, even if drawings, if you have to start there, do that. But it's better to start somewhere than just, like a pitch deck kind of thing. Well, not a pitch deck, just like kind of talking, hey, I got this idea, I want to do this. And it's going to be really hard for somebody to buy into that without a doubt. Like, I love when people come to me with an Excel spreadsheet and say, hey, look, this is how this works. And this is what we want to do. Because for me, I can start seeing what this app.
Yeah, you're back on. I think we lost you there.
Was I talking that whole time without? Oh my goodness. I don't know what the
I
deal
don't know
is
what's going
here.
on. Yeah,
I was gonna say, do you know where we dropped off? Because I was like just going on for a few minutes.
yeah, you were talking about even if you even if the guy's got sketches, not necessarily on Figma or
Yes.
whatever, and how helpful is that to you?
Yeah, it's helpful. It's a great start because then I can say, hey, okay, here's the next step. Here's what you should do next. And the more high fidelity, as in the more technical it is, the better. But you got to start somewhere. It's better than just a bunch of words, just telling me a bunch of words, right? So if you can put a presentation together, go for it for sure.
What about the
That'll help you in
intimidation
pitching
of
and
tools like
in talking
Figma,
to people.
and other similar tools like this? Do you think this shouldn't stop them? Like again, I started PowerPoint, and then I moved to Illustrator, and then I moved into Figma. And not gonna lie to you. Sometimes I feel like my sweet spot is Illustrator, although it's definitely not an industry standard. If I talk to a designer, it'll be like, you're a dinosaur. But that's I'm not technical all that. When I want to convey my ideas, I just like to do them on Illustrator and maybe just put some Figma just because it has better functionality later on. um, but yeah, what do you think about the intimidation of these tools for people of non-technical background?
Okay, so you're going to have to work, right? You're going to have to approach tools that you haven't approached before. That's what you're going to have to do. And that's going to be your whole journey. So I would say, I mean, there's so many online tutorials and helpful things that you can use to get yourself up and going. Saying that, like, you use Illustrator, use what works for you. And you have to find someone that you can work with that can work with you, right?
Mhm.
Because that's what it's all about. The founder relationship is all about working together and figuring out how to work together.
Makes sense.
Now, if they need, hey, you need Figma or whatever, that's something that you guys are going to have to work through to learn. But to make progress, if it starts with Illustrator, it'll start with Illustrator. As long as they can understand it and as long as they can work with you, you work with it. I mean, it's a relationship. So yes, is it ideal? Probably not. But as long as you can sort of make progress to what is more ideal, go for it. But having to learn all these tools, this and that. I mean, some of them are good, sure, but you have to start with what you know and kind of go from there. And as a startup founder, you're going to be learning all the time. You're probably going to always be drinking from a fire hose.
Mm.
So that's
Exactly, and
that would be
and it's also it's very time consuming to learn these tools when you could be out there selling or pitching. So I would say also, just to add to what you said, be resourceful, use whatever tools you've got to convey the point. If you can do it, the more professional you can do it, the better, obviously. But don't like you need to spend some time, but don't overkill. You know what I mean? And spend like days designing and while you're wasting some time selling. You know what I mean? You need kind of balance. You need also, I believe, and also let's get your opinion on this. I believe you also need to understand a little bit of coding, just a little bit of HTML, just a little bit of CSS, just a little bit of JavaScript, just a little bit of like what React is, just what these are, because sometimes complications might happen, and it's easier for the developer to tell you why we can do this feature, or we use this library, we don't use this library, we use GitHub, we don't use GitHub, we use this. What do you think about founders learning the basics? And if your answer is yes, go for it. Give us like five things for founders to research or to learn, whether it's languages or technologies, from HTML to like, so technologies like GitHub or something like that.
Mhm. So I don't know that I would advise founders to learn how to code.
Okay,
Um,
interesting.
I think it's unless that's what you want to do. You want to learn how to code.
Mm,
The reason why is because this. I don't know of many founders that have become effective developers, like, in
mm.
their startup journey.
I think
And
my
why would
point
they?
is
And I've
I think my
Mhm.
point is just to serve as like serve for better communication. Like, I don't code in noise sharks at
Gotcha,
all.
gotcha. Okay.
But when my CTO
Mhm.
conversed with me, be like, okay, so we were doing this and this, and when we committed on GitHub, this happened, and the branches merged together. And now I understand what he means by branches, what he means by GitHub merge, what he means by pull and push, and we use Vue. They use React. Why this worked, this doesn't. I now understand. What we were developing a feature the other day where what you have to do is, do some drag. You need to hold the mouse and drag it. And he was like, if we need to launch this feature faster, let's do it by check boxes instead, because it's faster. And when he explained to me why this is faster than drag and drop, like dragging something and reorganizing it, and I was like, okay, now I'm with you. Right? So that's
Right.
kind of like the point.
Yeah. So, okay. So, yes, the more education you have, the more you can understand and you can make decisions and empathize with the other party that's talking to you. So, the more you understand, the better. At the same time, you want to have someone that can just take the context and explain it to you in plain terms. Right? Because it's really hard as a non-technical person, you're trying to understand technical terminology and make decisions based on that. To me, that kind of doesn't make any sense.
Mm,
In a way, right? I mean, but it's how you work and how you understand things. So, like, what I don't like is when I'm working with people and they're giving me um, their opinions. I'm like, wait, I've been doing this for 20 years. I understand what the problem is here. And you have a limited piece of knowledge that you understand, right? And it's like, hey, why can't you do just, change the pixel size or something like that? And
mm.
it's like, well, these are the repercussions. These are the problems. Yes, you can make that quick fix, right? And then this is when you'll hear developers and other technical people start going into things like technical debt and performance and scaling and all these other issues. And they may be right, um, when suggesting changes, other changes, right? So I think it's a tricky line, and it's just more important to be able to communicate with whoever's technical, whoever is that person, to give you the information you need to make some sort of decision, or to make you feel comfortable and confident that, okay, we're doing the right things here. Because I think that's what a lot of this is about, right? It's like, wait, you guys are just wasting time. What are you doing? It's just really easy. I took HTML and CSS in college. I understand it. And it's a lot more complicated in actual practice and actual real life production apps,
Well,
right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I'm never one to say, hey, you shouldn't educate yourself. You
Hmm.
should, because education is very helpful. And like I said, it helps you to empathize with the other party a little bit more. Oh, okay, I understand. I get it now. And it may make you feel more comfortable as well.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So it has pros and cons. Like it has pros that you can have better communications, but it might have cons where actually you might do all of that, but then end up not using the code anyway, and not using your development skills anyway because it's a little bit less than needed. Because obviously a lot of apps these days have higher standards than before, and this is like a personal opinion that I have, is that you know people are not, especially B2C businesses, are not looking for MVPs. They're looking for RMVPs, which is remarkable, just because of how entitled the market became. I don't know if you agree with this, but I definitely, but like if your app before, let's go back to 2005 first. 2005, if your app looks shitty, that's no problem, right? If it works and it's cool and it has a cool name, okay, Facebook, whatever, right? And then 2015, for example, yeah, somewhat like this, still not a problem, right? But now 2022, and this is actually good. It could be a very good insight from yourself. Is that I believe, and I'm starting to see, if your app doesn't look gorgeous from the get go, people start to not believe in it for some reason, just because of how the standard of the market rose in the last 20 years. And I think to launch an app, I'm not sure if MVP is still acceptable. You might need an RMVP. By the way, I'm not talking about the surveying process. That process when you're having launched and you're surveying the concept, that's different. I'm saying about like asking people to pay for it, right? And putting it on market and like pay for this. For B2C, I think B2B, for some reason businesses don't care how how the app look. They're like, what is it, a tax SaaS the dashboard, does it work, or I'll pay for it, how much it is, $200 a month, it will do. I don't care if it looks yellow or red. But if it's Discord, and you've got Teams, and you've got Skype, and you've got Slack, and you've got Discord, which one is more B2C friendly? Discord, right?
Mhm.
um so what are your thoughts on this? Do you think, for example, right now, this is where the industry is going, is that the standard has been raised a little bit after launch? Your app needs to be better than what it needed to be like 10 years ago, and so on and so forth.
Um, Yeah, so there are definitely expectations. We're competing with, the latest feature that Google came out with, right? Or whatever. And, people see it and they just kind of want that for their application. I'm on a kind of the other side, honestly. I believe people tolerate crappy for a period of time,
Oh,
right?
fantastic.
If
Okay.
you are if you're able to iterate and fix and do whatever you have to do quickly enough,
Hmm.
when your problem is found out, I believe people will tolerate that. Now, if you're going into like a mature market that you have tons of competitors and they're already setting a certain standard, yeah, no, you're not going to be able to compete unless you are able to come to the table and kind of meet exactly what they're doing, right? So,
Mm,
but if you are very niche, I believe people will tolerate a little bugginess. Like, what do we do all the time? We just refresh the screen. Oh, just
right.
refresh it. It's just
It's
broken,
just fun.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
I think there's a little bit of tolerance to that, especially if you're developing something that's actually providing value. Hey, this is actually solving the problem I have. And
Mm.
I believe that people will deal with it for a period of time. But, I'm not suggesting develop crappy software at all, but I'm
Yeah.
suggesting that just done is better than perfect.
Mm.
And as long as you're iterating and you have momentum and you keep improving, I believe you can take people along with you for sure.
Fantastic, and I actually can see that right now. I think my thinking was more positioned in a way where most of the things I think about might compete with things that are already established. Um,
Mhm.
like let's say, for example, you have an app that wants to compete with, I don't know, Uber or something. You might want to keep that standard, but if you have, as you said, a niche app, let's say this app allows you to, I don't know, count how many drum hits you've hit in whatever, you know what I mean? I don't think there is that much of a competition in that niche. So I think whoever wants to use this tool and find it useful, I think what you said is true. They will be like, okay, it works. If all I have to do is just refresh the page, or like, I don't know, like restart the app or something like this, they might tolerate it for a while. So that's a very interesting insight. So very
Right.
competitive markets, you might need standards. Very niche market, you can get away with it. You said a very important keyword, which is to be quick about fixing stuff. You cannot be complacent.
Yes. Yes. Yep. Absolutely. I mean, it's all about iterating. It's all about hearing feedback and kind of, catering to your customers. I mean, you stick with your purpose and your idea and how you're solving the problem, but also listen to your customers and serve them.
So yeah, that was very insightful. And again, I think I was just limiting myself to the idea where most of the markets I'm thinking about is very established markets, right? Like especially when it comes to noise sharks, we've got a little bit of established competitors. That's why we need to be excellent in like what we're developing. We're still in like the MVP or trying to be an RMVP stage, but we're doing the tests and all of that stuff, and we kind of feel like that need to have the R before. But from what you said, if you're in a niche market and just launch your product, but be quick about it. Don't be complacent when it comes to fixing, listening, and reiterating, and just respond to the market and adapt, basically. Um, this takes us to another thing. You have a very good definition and very unique definition of what a startup is. So define for how do you define a startup for us?
Oh, so for me, it's just about building a scalable product. That's
Hmm.
it, really. I've been trying to understand this a bit more because everyone talks about, hey, I'm building a startup, I'm building a startup. I'm like, what does that actually mean? What does it mean? And I'm like, okay, well, this seems like more of like an investor kind of term. And so I was just like looking, I'm like, okay, this just means building something that's pretty scalable and that someone can eventually exit from. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, that's kind of my thought process there. Was there anything in particular that struck you with that post? I think that's all I said. I mean, then I went into like service-based businesses and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, you talked about like B2B softwares and what's the difference between B2C.
Yes.
But
Hmm.
before we get into that, so
Hmm.
I hear the term startup being used loosely, and
Right.
I'm not sure if everybody, when a lot of people call their business startup, I'm not sure if it's either it's because I don't know how I'm even defining the word startup, but some businesses, they don't feel like startup ish, and I don't know what's that about. Maybe it's not because, maybe it's, as you said, because it's not that scalable, or it doesn't have the conventional, like a journey of how a technology startup is. Um, but for example, you can't call all businesses startups. Like when you if you open a restaurant, or if you open like a car dealership, that's not a startup, or if you've got I don't know, but would you agree on that, or how does that differentiate, for example?
Yeah, and it's even more weird, right? So
Yeah.
like you have these companies that are called startups and they've been around for 20 years. You're like, this is a startup? That I don't understand what that actually means. And I mean, I'm one of the people that I just don't like terminology. I'm like, so
Mm,
what are we calling this a startup for? What does it mean? Does it mean
mm,
we're going to do anything different, make different decisions? At the end of the day, it still comes down to creating a product that customers want and they want to use. That's it. Or that customers need, actually, right? Solving a customer problem. And so I'm like, all right, whatever. You can call it whatever you want to call it, but this is actually what we're going to do.
do
And
you feel
yes,
like
I
it's
mean, I joke around with people. I'm like, yeah, laundromats are startups, but I mean, it's not the same thing, sure. But I'm like, yeah, you got to do something. You got to solve a problem.
do you
Go ahead.
feel
I'm
like it's
sorry.
a little bit of a blanket statement?
Yeah, it's honestly, it doesn't mean much to me.
Mm,
Honestly, I'm
mm.
just like, all right, cool. We want to build a software product here. Okay, all right, let's get to what we're actually going to do.
So
Yeah,
how did you differentiate between B2B and B2C? And you've got like if you said 5K a month and $8.5 a month
yeah.
prices and all of that. So what's your take on that?
So, I mean, first of all, B2B, you probably can charge a lot more for, right? And so my point was in that post is, okay, yeah, you can call it a startup, but you can just call it a business. And with 5K a month, I don't know the math right now.
Mm,
If you are building a product that you can charge 5K a month for, add it up, like that's $60,000 a year.
mm-hmm,
So 10 customers get you $600,000, right?
mm,
And of course, this is not including overhead and things like that,
mm,
but that's a life-changing amount of money
mm,
there. Two customers will get you 120K,
But you
right?
need to expect the
For
sales cycle is longer, obviously.
Sure, the sales cycle may be longer, but also if you're like a subject matter expert, and or you're someone that's been in a certain position for 10 years, 15 years, and you've been serving the same clients, I'm willing to bet, I've run into a bunch of these people, that you have 5 to 10 customers right there in your Rolodex that you can just pick up and call, right? I've been
Mm,
doing this for if it's someone that's been doing something specific forever, and you have a particular client base, they probably like you. They're probably going to work with you. Anything you do, you can probably sell to them, right?
mm-hmm,
So yes, the sales cycle will be longer, of course, right? And you'll probably have to go through different gatekeepers to make the sale. But so that was my point there. And in B2C consumer software, I was just trying to get the numbers to add up. I think it was like around 850 a month for a product. So 850 a month is, we'll say, about $100 a year.
mm-hmm.
Most people drop down $100 to use a piece of software.
Yeah.
But if you see how that adds up, 2,500 users will get you to like over $500,000 or something like that. It's not, the numbers aren't that daunting, right? And and again, it's a life-changing amount of money. So do you want to call it a startup? Sure, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but those are the actual numbers. And so
Mm,
that was my whole point with that. And I'm actually working with someone that does B2B software, and the number actually came from him. Because he charges about 5 grand a month, and he has a couple
nice.
of clients. And I'm like, man, you don't need much to have a great life here.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you're not trying to change the world, and you solving this problem for a few people. All you need is a few more customers, and you're good to go. Um, and so that was my point there. Of course, it's a lot easier than I'm making it out a lot easier than it actually is, right? Getting 2,500 people to sign up and drop down a couple of dollars isn't that easy. Um, but it's not like I need millions of users. I need to worry about CAC and LTV and all this other stuff
Mm.
that comes up when in the startup world, when you're starting talking to investors and whatever. So it was a very simplistic point there that I was trying to make.
Fantastic. Really,
But yeah,
really,
I mean, life
re-
changing is not a big deal, right? It's not hard to get life changing. Well, I'm sorry. It's not that it's not hard, but if you're thinking about building a unicorn, I don't
mm.
even know how you would think about that. How would you even start, really, right? So start with getting 5 customers, start with getting 10 customers, and
Oh
be
yeah, yeah.
profitable.
As they say,
So
don't run before you walk, or something like that. Don't start
right,
running
walk
before you
before you
walk.
run,
Walk before you run, whatever it is. But
crawl before you walk.
crawl before. Yeah, exactly. Crawl before you walk and then run. Don't come out running.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
it makes sense because it is very good to have like an end goal and have that north star and stuff. But obviously, you need to take incremental steps. And there are a lot of like growth experts actually that say, your first step is to find product market fit and then focus on growth. Because there was an app that launched 2 years ago or 3 years ago. It was just like when COVID hits. I forgot what's it called. It got really popular. It wanted to compete with Netflix with short movies. And it was backed by very big names, eBay, Sony. I forgot what's it called. And it got like 100,000
Mhm.
downloads or whatever, and just it flopped because I think they didn't know how to execute it or whatever. But the point I'm trying to get is, let's say you just launched and you got like a million user. That could be a little bit of a bad thing, ironically, because you don't have enough studies that you've done to retain them. So if I send you a million users right now, but you're gonna lose, 900, like 90% of them, 95% of them, because you don't have enough data or journeys or funnels or like UX or whatever it is that you've studied and developed over time to retain them. Then
Mhm.
this million users was just like a Friday night. You know what I mean? Like it's just like a good day, and then everybody was gone. And not just this, because they're gone. They have probably bad, not necessarily bad, but like they didn't retain for a reason, and that's not good. So sometimes, yeah, take your time, gather information, learn, build, iterate, and all of that. And so, Andre, this was really really great. I'm just gonna talk about a couple of thoughts, and then I really wanted to get to more topics with you. So maybe we'll do this again sometime. But there are a couple of thoughts that I really want to talk to you about and get your information about, and they're a little bit more relevant. And then we can wrap it up. I don't want to take more of your time. The first thought is Web3 is very popular right now, which means a lot of non-technical co-founders. What do they do? Everybody's ambitious. You know how entrepreneurs are and all of that. If they already have a startup, they go to their CTO and they kind of slap them in the face with their their very ambitious Web3 idea. Or if they don't even have a startup and this is their first startup, they go start talking to people. Just very briefly, tell us what is your opinion about this? What was the complications, and what is the reality of the situation that non-technical co-founders need to understand about the availability of the skill?
So I'm not a Web3 person,
Mm.
just to put it out there.
And that's a point by
But
itself, by the way, just so everybody can.
yes,
Yeah.
for sure. But I mean, I have the technical background to get into it if I really need to
Mm,
understand, right? I don't think it would be that much because a lot of it is just like a concept, right?
mm,
Of, security and privacy. But a solution for a problem. That's the first thing I thought about when you were talking about. If
mhm,
you're running around with a solution, hey, Web3, now let's go find a problem to solve with Web3. It's not a good idea, right? It's not a good idea because, first of all, people aren't going to buy something just based on technology. Like I just did something about artificial intelligence. If you're leading your sales pitch or your marketing with, hey, this is an AI solution. Okay, well, does it solve the problem that I'm trying to solve? Like, I don't care
mm,
how you're actually doing it, but are you solving the problem I need to solve? If you're using AI, that's great. That's great. Maybe it's better. Hopefully, it's bettering the value of that application. So that's kind of how I look at it. So when these new marketing things come, like to me, this is Web3 is like a marketing terminology.
mm,
Now it's been brought to that point, and when it gets to that point, I'm just like, all right, I can't follow this anymore. Like, what are we doing? What are we actually solving?
mm,
And let's go there. I
because
get the ideas and the concepts. Mhm.
yeah, because every B2C company now wants to have a token, wants to sell NFTs, wants to do something on the metaverse. And I'm not gonna lie, Noise Sharks is one of them. I already had I told, I told them my plans and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
And obviously my CTO,
Mhm.
brought me back to reality. It was like, listen, this skills, there are skills needed and all of that. We need to hire people for that and all of this. It's not as easy as you think. There's a lot of like infrastructure for this. And then I've learned just to be humble about it, and maybe you can share with why non-technical co-founder needs to appreciate a little bit their people they're already working with, and that this is like a new thing that everybody needs to learn, because sometimes I see that non-technical co-founders can get entitled a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, I think it's just like a solution for a problem. Okay,
Mm.
let's go find we have a solution now. Let's go find the problem. And we're gonna, it's like a popular thing is people like to say, it's like you have a hammer, now all you're looking for is nails. That's all you're
Ah,
looking
yeah.
for is nails. So if there's a screw that you can use, you can't do anything with it because you got a hammer, right? And that's how I look at these things. And also when
Mm,
you have like Web3, NFTs, Bitcoin, crypto, and those are like very specialized technologies, right?
mm,
And you are probably going to need specialists that can deal with that stuff, or artificial intelligence. You're going to need specialists, and specialists are usually more expensive. They require more stuff. Like for AI, for instance, you need lots of data for AI,
mm,
and you need a lot more support. So it's not just like, oh, you're technical, you're a developer, go do this, because you're not going to find many people that can right away.
mm.
So and it's new, right? It's new.
Exactly. So you
So
can't expect your CTO
we're
or
all catching up.
yeah, yeah, you can't expect him to just go immediately and build like and like this is I think people need to be a little bit more realistic about it and understand the current situation. You know what I mean? And the second topic I want to talk to you about very briefly is the no code movement. What are the pros
Mm,
of it? What are the cons of it? When is it considered as as a pro? What situations? What situations can be considered as a con? And I'm just gonna give you a little bit of my opinion, so maybe you can understand what I'm trying to get. So I think there are products that maybe non-technical co-founders can use no-code tools to develop or to bring to market by themselves, as we said before in the episode, to either pitch for a co-founder or to actually do some sales or all of that stuff, and or they can actually last a longer life cycle on that same no code infrastructure. But I do believe that there are a lot of ideas and business models that just cannot work on no code, and Noise Sharks is one of them, for example. But like other products, like I don't think, again, Discord. I don't think you can build Discord on a no code tool. I don't think you can build, I don't know, Twitch on a no code tool. Maybe I'm wrong, but maybe you can elaborate on that. And I would love to hear your opinion. What do you think about this movement?
okay, so let's start with the pros and cons. So for me, the pros are that you can do things yourself. And I'm all about that self empowerment. I'm able to get something out there and go do some customer interviews, or just go get that that's maybe a step up from your presentation to get your co-founder so that you can show them. I'm all for stuff like that. And also, it'll, for non-technical people, it'll help you to start to understand product development, right? I think that's the most important skill that you should probably learn, is product development rather than any technical thing. So I
Very much.
think that will kind of help you. So from a con standpoint, I don't know. I would feel not that comfortable with scaling, with a scaling of a no code platform. I haven't seen it, and this is just my own hunch, honestly. And so I wouldn't, like you said, Discord or Slack. I don't know that you can build those things on to the scale on those kinds of platforms. And then the problem is when you get locked into like an ecosystem. So for instance, I don't know, do you have an Apple phone? Like, are
Yeah,
you like, or an iPhone? Then
both.
you
Yeah.
have like, iTV and iTunes and i this, and you're kind of locked into their ecosystem. How are you going to leave? It's really, really
Mm,
hard to leave. So I look at no code like that as well, in a way that you can get to a point where it's like, oh, I'm with them always, and maybe it works out. I don't know. I think we're kind of in the early days, but I also think that no code is another one of the marketing terms that I just don't like, because we've had no code forever,
mm,
forever. Now there's just more tools, right? When I say that, no code includes things like Zapier,
mm.
um,
Figma
and
is one of
no
them.
code to me is Figma.
Mm.
To me, no code is Excel, right? It's, you can solve your problem with Excel, right?
Oh, very
And
interesting.
so I think there are different levels to no code as well, right? So there are just like tools that you can use, like to do integrations and automation, and then there's platforms like Bubble kind of thing where you can use to actually develop and put your app out there. So I think there are definitely a lot of levels, and I don't know what the move, like the movement to like empower, to self-empower people, I get, but the movement to say, I don't need a developer, I don't need a designer, I don't know if that stands up, because I feel like this is just another hunch that you're going to have developers that are bubble developers, and they're
Oh,
going to be the same people that you're working with right now, right? In my opinion, that's how this thing is going to play out. At the end of the day, I don't think a non-technical founder needs to focus that much on actually developing their product, developing it maybe from a conceptual standpoint and kind of
product. Yeah.
communicating it with their team, but actually their job is to do more marketing and sales. I think
Mm.
that's more important, and that's harder to do, honestly, than actually getting something built. So, I mean, I haven't used any of the platforms yet. I'm actually considering it just so I can expand my knowledge a little bit and understanding. So I'm not just kind of throwing out a bunch of conjecture like this, but I'm pretty sure I'm not that far off, honestly. I haven't seen any largely successful SaaS companies come out and say, "Hey, I'm using no code. I built this on whatever." I've seen smaller apps do it, or like internal into in organizations use Bubble to kind of get them to connect two pieces together. But yeah, I haven't seen any. But I mean, Bubble just they got lots of funding, and I think are they going public or something like that? I don't know. But
Yeah.
so there's something to it. There's something to it for sure.
Yeah. So I kind of have a strong opinion about it, where I think if you're a tech startup, uh, it's gonna be, as you said, very restrictive in the future to be on a no code platform. But if you are, a small business, e-commerce, I don't know, something like that, you're selling stuff, selling physical products, I don't know, something like that, I think it would be very helpful. But I really totally agree with what you said, and I haven't even used a lot of the tools like yourself, so I'm not sure if I'm just but I'm just imagining that there are a lot of sometimes very customized features for a lot of ideas, and these kind of like the concepts that break through markets, right? And it just doesn't make sense that these concepts and these features or this logic will be embedded inside a no code platform. Just doesn't make otherwise, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure if there's logic behind that, but
Yeah, and listen, sometimes it's not necessary. Those features aren't necessary when you're first launching. So like you
yeah.
said, like it's good for an early stage. You don't need all those other features and all those bells and whistles. Maybe you need it later on to compete and
Hmm.
actually deliver, but you may not need it right away. And if you don't need it right away, you may not get to later on. So maybe no code is a great way for you to kind of just go out and test the market for sure.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And it's a lot of it's for free as well. So if you, I think if you, a lot of it they work on a basis where if you keep their domain name in their URL and the URL you publish, then it's for free. Obviously, if you want to unlock a
Mhm.
couple of things, so it's also a very good tool to be used as a resourceful, you know, thing to get back to fall back onto. But yeah, listen, this was a very great conversation. I would really like to
Mhm.
carry on in the
Yeah, for
future. I've
sure.
got a lot of points that we haven't gotten to that you have very good opinions on. And yeah, man, I hope to we catch up soon. And thank you for coming today on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was fun talking. Yeah, there's so much to talk about in this area for sure. So yeah, I'm open. Let me
100,
know.
100%. Thank you very much, man. Cheers.
All right. Take care.